What is up, everybody? The magic of technology. We got it to work yet again. I am Kevin Iole. I'm joined by my friend George Zapata. George, how are you? Welcome.
Good, buddy. What's happening? What's going on? You had a big weekend over the weekend, too. I did as well. And now, tonight, Friday, it's football that is for me. I got to go to a football game. But the fights first. Let's go talk about them.
And I got fights, too, tonight because I will be at the Dana White Contender Series tonight. So we will be doing that. So let's looking forward to that one. Yeah, let's talk about the fights that are going on. UFC 307 was Saturday in Salt Lake City. I was Octagon side for that. And I have to say this before we get really into the meat and potatoes of this live chat. For the first time, I think probably in my life, I was getting people texting me all throughout the show. Hey, you're on TV. And it was like, I don't know why that particular show, because I'm usually in the same seat all the time. But that particular show, for whatever reason, I was getting a lot of people taking screenshots and watching. There was one friend of mine, she bought the fight and she was watching the main card. And she didn't even start paying attention to the fights till the main event. She was just looking for me in the audience. So it was a little crazy.
Well, to find a sexy guy in the front row, that's woo. That's some.
I guess everybody just wanted to wish me a happy birthday, right? So.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I'm officially old now. But, you know, the main event, UFC 307, Khalil Roundtree Jr., I thought covered himself in glory, as much glory as you can when you get knocked out in the fourth round of a championship fight. I thought he fought like an absolute warrior, a phenomenal performance by Khalil. And Alex Pereira, though, showed why he is so highly regarded. He is number 2 on most of the pound-for-pound lists around, and I think he's starting to make an argument to be number 1, given what he's doing. He set a record. I don't know that this is like the most significant record ever, but he made his 3rd title defense in 175 days. Really significant, George, when you think about it, because Ronda Rousey had 189 days between defenses. So this is the quickest anybody ever got to 3. You know, in terms of like fancy records, you know, hitting home runs or whatever. It's not something like that, but it is significant in the fact that it shows this guy is active. He's fighting really good guys, and he's continuing to not only win, but to win impressively.
Well, that was the one reason why I thought Roundtree would have an advantage, the turnaround being so fast on that high level. Now, granted, he did knock the daylights out of Jamal Hill. It wasn't really a competitive fight, but there's still the training camp that goes into it, and everything behind the scenes that you don't see that you could get injured on. That's the only reason why I thought it'd be a little tougher. And, you know, Roundtree, what can you say about him? I mean, that's one of the toughest guys by far I've seen in a long time. One other thing to add to that stat, I think it's 4 times in 365 days. I think Chael Sonnen said that. That itself is incredible to fight that many times on that level. Put it that way.
Right. I mean, you know, Roundtree was the lowest ranked fighter that he fought. I mean, almost all the other fighters he's been fighting were either former champions or reigning champions. I mean, so what he has done has been, and I should mention this, I on my channel, look for it later today at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern today. I will be interviewing Khalil Roundtree, so I will have that interview up later today. It's going to be interesting to hear what Khalil has to say.
Well, the fact that he feels okay to do the interview, that's, again, I saw his face. I think you tweeted it out or you texted. I mean,
I texted you the photo.
That is incredible that he survived that. Now, even Mark Goddard said that when Alex Pereira hits people, it is a whole different sound. So look at the fights, the punches that he took in that fight. That alone, and it was basically a kickboxing match. There was no grappling at all. No one took a takedown. That alone shows the kind of fighter that he is overall in his stature and where he should be ranked now. Now, you know, that could show you 8th in the UFC ain't that bad.
Yeah, I mean, Roundtree, you know, there was a lot of criticism, and I understood the criticism. I wasn't, you know, shrugging the criticism off wholly that Ankalaev should have had the fight. Ankalaev was rated number 2, and it was a little strange, I thought, that they made a fight for Ankalaev against Alexander Rakic before they made the main event of UFC 307, and then about 2 weeks after they made Rakic Ankalaev for UFC 308, then they made Roundtree versus Pereira. So to me, that was a little bit strange, the way they did that, but. And I think we have to put the big but in there. Khalil Roundtree proved that the UFC made the right decision because, if that gave that fight that card a signature fight. There was a fight on that card that people are going to be talking about now for a long time. And without Roundtree on that, and without that fight going down the way it did, like even if it was Ankalaev, and Ankalaev is a good striker. He's he is a very good striker, but Ankalaev has that wrestling. There would have probably been a lot more grappling, and the fight would have been a different type of fight. People like those crazy slugfest, George, and that's what they got with that fight.
No, I agree. It instant classic. I couldn't have asked for anything better. You pluck down that money. You want to see a good fight. I was actually surprised that the fight was the way it was, but man, I mean, it makes Roundtree a bigger star actually for his next fight. For his next fight.
And I'm going to talk to him about all that stuff when I interview him today, kind of what was going through his mind. I thought, myself, I thought as the fight went on that, Pereira's punching accuracy, and I thought his jab and then the right hand behind it. But you look in that fourth round, he was just stalking him, and he was throwing that jab. Dana White, I asked him the question at the press conference, and he said he thought it was the calf kicks, which I agree. I thought the calf kicks were important early in the fight. I didn't think it got to the point where, you see sometimes when people are whacking you with those calf kicks where guys are limping, they have to change stance. And I didn't think Roundtree got to that position. But certainly Pereira, when it was going to be a kickboxing match, he was taking out the legs, he's hurting him to the head. So, he was really kind of minimizing him, I thought.
Well, and then it's another thing you look at with the fact that Roundtree came right out of the gate and he was up 2-0. According to the judge, he was up 2-0.
I had a 2-0, yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought the second was a little bit closer, maybe. I don't know. Man, that's just me, my perspective. You were closer. So you see a better, you have a better view. And you could actually hear the impact. So maybe, on TV, it doesn't come off as relevant as that. But to be down 2-0 and then come back like that and methodically stalk them and then finally get them out of there. They don't get much better than Alex Pereira right now.
Yeah, there is no doubt. We're going to go through one or two more fights on this card. We're going to then talk about Beterbiev, Bivol, and we'll get to all your questions after that. But there is one question that came up, so I'll just put this up here right now. Devin asks, how do you feel about stalling against the cage? I don't mean effective control time on the ground. I mean keeping the fight in an unfinishable position against the cage for extended period of times. And the reason I put that up right now, put that question up now, is because they're talking about the Jose Aldo Mario Bautista fight, and that is interesting, right? Batista was not trying to finish the fight. There's no doubt. He did not want to stand up. He tried a little bit early in the fight to stand up with Aldo, and he realized he's going to probably get knocked out. So he's making a decision on the fly. Although I heard he said that, that was part of the game plan anyways, but he made a decision in the fight. Hey, let's try to get against the cage and keep him here and maybe pick our shots more than what was going on. And I just, like live, I actually scored the fight for Bautista. I gave 1 and 3, I think it was, for Bautista, and 2 for Aldo. I watched the fight again, and, I think I was mistaken on that because my recollection live was that he was doing more, to try to finish. But then when I watched it a second time, and it just seems like all he was doing was was holding on, right, and holding the leg, and he wasn't trying to do anything. And Aldo wasn't getting credit for stuffing takedowns, so I thought that had to be noted.
Let me ask you, do you think this was a legacy win, meaning people are going to feel a little bit, they're going to lean more towards Aldo and give him a round if it was close, just because of what he's done in his career? I think that was a point there. People were very upset about it. There were people upset about it, but I kind of agree with you. That's his style. He's not gonna slug with Aldo. He's not. I mean, you're going to take him down.
Yeah, you're talking one of the best strikers in UFC history, and he realizes he's outgunned against him. So, you got to make another decision. I just thought he did a little bit too much of it, right? I mean, it's easier for me to say, hey, stand in front of Jose Aldo and start throwing punches. That's easy for me to say, right? Because I'm not the one getting hit. But having said that, it is a fight. And if you want to win the fight, you have to take some risks, right? And I thought, grabbing Jose and holding him against the cage, and holding on to his leg. I disagreed with what Conor McGregor was putting, that there should be some clock, because some people are working for grappling and they need time to be able to do it. But I understood his larger point, and I agree with that larger point that, Bautista certainly was not looking to advance position at all. And I think that was a big issue there.
But that's going to be a judgment call on the referee. Like, when do you break them up? If you have a clock, you start getting that crap involved. I mean, you got to have, I think, better trained referees to determine when they got to get up, when they don't.
Let's get two more things on that. The judging overall, I thought was horrible on the card. And in the co-main event, I actually had Raquel Pennington winning that fight. I gave Raquel Pennington rounds 1, 4, and 5, and I gave Juliana Pena rounds 2 and 3. And the fight came down to round 1. All three judges gave that round. They gave all 3 of the first 3 rounds to Juliana Pena. So basically, after 3 rounds, Raquel Pennington was in a position where she needed to finish. But I wasn't crazy. It wasn't a great fight to my way of thinking, George. And I look at that almost now, Pennington loses. There's no talk of a rematch. Nobody wants to see that. Amanda Nunes is now out there saying, hey, I'm here. I'm thinking about coming back. Kayla Harrison was promised she would get the title shot. It's kind of interesting. I think it kind of got messed up. And also, I should mention, I did put a tweet out first yesterday that Kayla was in the hospital last week. She was peeing blood. She had female problems, and she was bleeding. She had to take antibiotics, and so I think that impacted her performance. She later did some interviews and talked about it, and I believe this is probably related to weight cut. So that that may affect who gets the next fight, because if Amanda wants to come back, I think they might have given it to Kayla under ordinary circumstances. But George, I think it's going to take a while for Kayla to be able to get healthy and get back, and so that may push her aside and with Amanda getting it instead.
Now, I've always looked at Kayla. I thought she looked healthier, heavier. Okay, I thought she could have tightened up her physique, but her physique now is really tightened up, and almost to the point where it looks a little unhealthy, just because seeing her walking on the scale, I said her face was drawn in and every fighter does it. I get it. But there's a point where your hormones start to get affected, and your body physically, you can't do that all too much, especially getting a little bit older and advancing.
I had said to her, during my interview with her pre-fight, I had interviewed her in person at UFC 300, and when she walked in the room, and I've known Kayla for a long time. I covered the 2016 Olympics when she won the gold medal, and her second gold medal, and I've covered her a lot in her career. And I said I almost didn't recognize her because of shedding that weight. I mean, think about this. In 2016, what was she? 26 years old, I believe. She was fighting at 172 pounds in the Olympics.
Wow.
And now she's fighting at 135. She won her gold medals at 100. It was 171.9 pounds, because they weight in kilos. So she was now 30 some pounds lighter. I mean, and that cannot be good for her health.
No, not at all.
Let's move on. We'll get to a lot. I see questions are starting to pile up, and I don't want to get too far behind on those. But I want to just talk a little bit about the Undisputed Light Heavyweight Championship is going on in boxing on Saturday in Riyadh. A fight that I'm really excited about. Artur Beterbiev, one of my favorite fighters in the sport to watch. He is 20-0 with 20 knockouts, and this dude is a freaking killer. He is fighting Dimitri Bivol, who is 23-0 with 12 knockouts.
Mm.
I wrote a column on keviniole.com, and you can go see that. I also tweeted it if you can't spell my last name, which is right there on the screen. So you should be able to do that. But it's on my Twitter account as well if you want to try to find that. But I picked Beterbiev to win. But here's what I picked, George, and I want to get your take on this. I made 3 plays on the fight. I took Beterbiev to win. I took Beterbiev plus 700 by decision. He's 20-0 with 20 knockouts, and I said Beterbiev plus 700 by decision. And then I also took the over 10.5. I had to lay $2 on that. So just kind of curious your thoughts on those picks.
Well, okay, so I know we're on 2 opposite ends here. I was trying to go through who Beterbiev struggled with. Callum Johnson came up to where knocked him down in round 2 or 3. Now, Callum Johnson.
Callum Smith?
Yeah, no, Callum Johnson. I saw. Callum Johnson. I looked through his record. He's a British fighter.
You're going back a ways. Okay, because that's 6 years ago.
Yeah, I just want to see where he struggled along his process because no one's made it to the final bell. Okay, and he has not gone into 11. Well, he got 10 rounds, 2 minutes is his max. I don't think that's going to affect much in this fight though. But I believe Bivol will outbox him only because I think he's just that skilled. And if someone like Callum Johnson can knock him down, I'm not saying Bivol can knock him down, but keep him at bay because I think he punches harder. Callum, and I only go by Callum Johnson just because I'm looking at who he struggled with. I was looking at all the fights he struggled with. Callum Johnson in his last the third fight prior to the one that he was fighting, he fought a guy who was 3-120.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the greatest.
Going a little different in levels of competition.
So,
let me just say this, right? So the fight that I look at when I look at Beterbiev and I say, hey, it was his fight against Alexander Gvozdyk, which was in Philadelphia near where you live in 2019. They were both champions at that point. Gvozdyk was undefeated. And that was a close fight for a lot of the way. Gvozdyk was a really good boxer. People don't remember how good that guy was. He was given Beterbiev. But Beterbiev, George, is a boxer. And Beterbiev has really good feet. He has a really high boxing IQ. And his instinct is to knock you out and to try to hurt you. But I also think he's smart enough. And if he sees that, he's not, getting to Bivol, I think, he'll make adjustments. Hey, if Bivol wins the fight, I'm not shocked. But right. I think it's, to me, I just think Beterbiev has more ways to win the fight. And that's why I'm going with him.
Maybe more ways to win, but it has Beterbiev got all of a sudden fallen in love with his power. I don't know. I
don't think he has. I mean, I think you watch him and he fights out of it. He's doing his normal routine, right? And he's got a really good trainer in his corner, and Mark Ramsey, John Scully, a good friend of mine, is also in that corner. So Russ Amber will be there. Russ Amber was just nominated for the International Boxing Hall of Fame, so that's a really solid corner. And I think they're going to give good advice to him, and they're going to have him prepared to come in with a good game plan. And I don't think Beterbiev is this guy like, a lot of times people think, George, when you have a great knockout record that you're this, seek and destroy guy and you just boom, boom forward and throw big punches. Beterbiev gets it within the scope of his boxing game, and he's setting guys up for things. So I like him. Let's move on from that, and we're getting a lot of questions right now. So
I'm getting killed in the comments. So
let's get this up here. So Rakid writes, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. What's your thoughts on this card being the worst in the year in terms of live gate, about 5 million? Yeah. And if we compare the Utah card of 23, the BMF title fight was 6.5 million. To me, that's, Utah is going to be a small card because it's a smaller state, right? And they can't charge as high prices, right? And while Utah is a tourist destination, it's not a tourist destination for that kind of thing. So I would be willing, like when you see a fight in Vegas, and I have it right here. So I have, this is the Noche, some of the stats from Noche. I'd have to pull, okay, here it's right on the top. 89% of UFC 306 ticket buyers were from markets outside of Nevada.
Yeah.
So only 10% of the people who went to UFC Noche were from Nevada. And I would be willing to bet that it was completely flipped opposite on UFC 307. So that, the reason, Rakit, is that people were from Utah. They're not going to be able to charge those high prices that they charge in New York and somewhere else. And so the gate goes down. The card last year, when you take the BMF title fight, that was Poirier and Gaethje. Then you add Pereira fought Jan Blachowicz on that card, right? So you've got an Alex Pereira fight. I think it was just a little bit better card for people, and there was that interest. So that's all I think that was.
I mean, UFC is on a roll as far as gate and revenue. There's no stopping that machine.
Right. Let's go down here. What do we got here? So they should bring in a yellow card rule. This is talking about MMA for stalling if they continue to deduct a point on the stalled round. I'm not too I want the referees to have less decisions to make, right? Because I want to ask this question and see if you get the answer right, George. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
What is the number one job of the referee? What is his most important? What is his most significant job?
To keep the fighter's safety.
Correct. And so we want, the fewer decisions the referee has to make, right? We don't want to give him this gray area, right? If it's black and white, okay, that's one thing. And he knows when he sees this, that he does that. But when you get in this gray area and start, making judgment calls, that's when it gets tricky. And I understand the question, and I certainly appreciate that. And this Aldo fight was one that I think, probably could have benefited from that. But I don't want to get into a position where, we're having the referees look like, think of Mark. Well, it wasn't going to be the case in the Pereira fight, but Mark Goddard in that Pereira fight, you noticed him in that last minute of the fight as Khalil is trying to get away and move around the cage. Mark is just like looking at him and had the eyes on him very, very closely. And I should mention, because we got new people joining, I will have an interview with Khalil Roundtree today. It'll be on my YouTube channel this afternoon. So make sure you look for that. Let's see.
Rich, Kevin, one point on that. One, you want to take as much subjectiveness out of the mix for boxing, because it's very subjective. Secondly, Mexican fighters and Puerto Rican fighters love the pressure. When they stop, you can't do it. Let them keep going. That's part of the fight. You gotta have conditioning.
I'm with you on that. All right. Manuel said, with John Jones out of the equation, Alex is number one pound for pound. Okay. We're thankfully we can talk about this because Dana's not here, so we are not going to get it. So I am going to disagree with both Dana and Manuel there, because I think Islam Makhachev is pound for pound number one. But having said that, and I referenced this at the very beginning, I think Alex is starting to make a run at him, given the opposition that he has faced. And I want to ask you this, George. There was a, and I hate to say this about people who follow me or whatever, but this guy, he was a clown because he wrote on my Instagram page, everybody hates the MMA media. He didn't like a question I asked at the post-fight press conference. And I'm going to explain why I asked the question. I'm going to tell you what the question was and explain, if that moron is listening, why I asked the question that I asked. Because he wouldn't understand what I was trying to say, and he was just telling me how smart he was, and and everybody else was arguing with him, and so he basically didn't like when I said, I asked Dana, do you think Alex Pereira's run now with all these champions that he has fought is equal to or exceeds John Jones or Anderson Silva's run when they went on their long streaks and did their thing? The reason that I asked that question is I'm trying to get an answer from Dana for a story that I'm using. My job is not to be there and to create, entertain you guys. My job is to get news and information and put it in my stories, right? And so I was thinking of my column. What do I say? What is Dana White, the most powerful man in MMA? What does he think about the streak that Alex Pereira is on? Does he think it is as good as John Jones' streak? Does he think it is as good as Anderson Silva's streak? Or does he say, hey, he had more to go? So I was looking for an answer. I didn't know what he was going to say, but I was looking for an answer that I could use a quote in my story. And that's why I wrote that. But having said that, right, and this guy said Alex has no grappling, and Alex is a striker, but I think you'll be surprised when you see if he has to grapple. But I do think Alex is. Let's get specifically to the question. I do think Alex is making a run at Islam for number one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I always thought Alex Pereira was probably number 3 to 5, right in there. Now with this performance. He's kind of close up there, Kevin. I don't know. But I think Islam is number 1. I think you're right there.
So, all right. And that could change. Now, here's the other thing, and thank God of this. We got 2 more pay-per-views. We got UFC 308 and then UFC 309. And then John Jones is back, and this all ends then, because now John Jones will have fought Stipe Miocic at UFC 309. And then we can judge how John Jones looks now, because that's what pound for pound is. Pound for pound is not your body of work, right? Pound for pound is what you were doing right now. And so that is something that, we're trying, I think that finally John will fight and we'll be able to evaluate how he looks right now. And I think, there's a good chance in my mind, if John defeats Stipe Miocic, he'll become number 1. But we have to wait until that happens. But I am happy that we are close to UFC 309 in New York, so that on November 16th, so we have that.
Guys, smash that like button. Get that like button. Get those likes up, buddy.
All right, so let's see. What do we got here? Is Joaquin Buckley versus Kamaru Usman the next fight to make? How do you think that fight would go? Any thoughts on that one, George?
I don't. What is Usman doing now? He hasn't been. He is kind of inactive. I mean, really, he's doing a great podcast. I can tell you that. Him and Henry Cejudo do a great podcast together. But I haven't heard nothing from that camp. Have you? I mean, nothing.
No, I don't know that anything's going on there. So he was hoping. I think he's still hoping to be in the Bilal Muhammad mix, right? I think that's what Usman is hoping for. I don't think he's going to get that fight. I think we're going to hear fairly soon. It's going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov. It's going to probably be the one. But let's look at the rankings. Buckley just moved into the top 10, so he's now ranked number 9 in that division. Usman is ranked number 2. And so do they give Usman the number 9 contender? Usman also might decide to fight at middleweight. We don't know. He fought, before at middleweight. Who knows what he's going to decide to do? I'll tell you a fight, and I think it's a tough fight for Buckley. Is Sean Brady. I think maybe that's a fight. Sean Brady is number 5. Right, that would be one, and if not that one, another one that I like for Buckley, because you look going up, and you've got number 8 Gilbert Burns. Burns is coming off a loss, and I think Gilbert is kind of on the downhill there. Number 7 Ian Machado Gary, that wouldn't be a bad fight for Buckley. Number 6 Colby Covington, I think Covington Gary would be a good fight. But number 5 Sean Brady, I think 5 Brady versus 9 Buckley. That that might be a fight that people might like.
Makes sense. That would make a lot of sense. And I like Buckley. I think Buckley's a good dude.
So I like Buckley too. A lot of people don't like Buckley. I'm not sure what that is, but a lot of people don't like Buckley. Rakit says Beterbiev by KO round 8. So we got that one there, Rakit. We went into that before. I've got my bets for people who are new and just joining. I wrote a betting column on KevinIole.com yesterday. And you can go check that out. I recommended 3 bets. I picked Beterbiev to win. He was plus 120 at the time I did that. The numbers I used were from DraftKings. Then I picked Beterbiev by decision at plus 700, and then I laid $2 over 10.5 rounds. So
I gave the guarantee bet the opposite of whatever I pick. You'll win a ton of money. Just pick
And
the opposite.
he's picking Bivol, everybody. So, so
I don't think
we
I've won yet with you.
we see that one coming out. Let's see here, my man Hank the Tank. How do you guys see the Topuria Holloway fight playing out? Are you leaning toward either fighter to win? George, I'll start with this one. My take on the fight is I lean toward Holloway, right? Holloway has fought so many elite guys at that level, and he's got that chin, that I think is really going to serve him well here. I think it's going to be a tough fight, a little bit different style of fighter than Justin Gaethje, meaning Ilia Topuria. But I wonder how the weight cut is going to impact Max. But I haven't really gotten into breaking it down carefully yet. I'll have that coming up soon. But if I had to say, I would probably lean toward right now Max Holloway.
Well, I'm going the opposite. I just think younger. At some point, Holloway's got to cave a little bit. He hasn't yet, and every time I pick against him, he shows me different. But I'm going with the younger, more energetic.
No, I'm going to ask everybody to subscribe to George's podcast. This is a Pot of Brand podcast, and to do that right away. And I want to give you a second to do that. I'm going to stall for time here. I'm getting to be an experienced broadcaster. I'm stalling for time to give people a chance to subscribe to your podcast, George, because now I'm going to tell them, you and I have done this a number of times, and we always make picks. And what's my record compared to your record?
You were undefeated. As a matter of fact, you've one time switched me the other way because I didn't want to agree with you, and I still lost. It was the just recently the Sean O'Malley fight. I was like, that was me last minute.
That's since you and I have been doing this. That's the one that I lost. Although my actual picks on the I had Pereira winning, but you could go back and read my MMA betting. I didn't have a great betting week on UFC 307.
You're betting 1,000 with me.
With George. So with George, now that I know everybody subscribed to his channel, yes, I've got him down there. Jappy Joe, we appreciate that, brother. Thank you for that. George and I are going to try to do these a lot. Let's see.
Tuesdays is going to be a good day. It's after UFC, after boxing.
Let us know in the comments, either on the live here or down below on one of my things. Is Tuesday at this time? Like, I'm trying to figure out the right time that we can get the most people that's convenient for most people. Maybe we'll switch them around. We'll see how I do, but I've always loved to have engagement with the fans and hear what you guys think and everything. But I want to try to find a good time to do it so that people know, hey, we're doing it on this at this point. We all know that they don't deduct points. That was what we were talking about when we were talking about the card and everything. Yeah. I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, first of all, it's not the UFC, it's the officials, right? The UFC has nothing to do with it. It's the officials that you're talking about. And I just think it's a case-by-case basis, right? So I think we have to, but maybe Hank is referencing that horrendous judge. That's probably, let me backtrack on that, George. Let me backtrack. Dave Stellestead was the name of the judge in the Ihor Peteria Cesar Almeida fight. And I think there was 4 eye pokes and a low blow, and he missed them, and he was telling them to fight, and it was just horrendous refereeing. I thought he was overmatched. I don't know if that was his first UFC fight, but it looked to me like he was a little bit starstruck. He might be a good referee, and it's important to try to develop new referees, and they can only develop if they get a chance to do it at the highest level. But that's when he could have taken multiple points in that fight.
Did you see he was actually, like, it seemed to, in the commentators, Anik and DC more he was more vocal about it, to the point where the ref looked down at him, where he was saying, don't break him up, and he did. And I think I think he was in a situation where he was playing to the crowd a little bit, because the crowd started booing. And he started to get, and don't do that. You got to separate that, because look at Gotti Ward. If he would have played to the crowd, Frank Cappuccino would have stopped the fight when we had another round to go. It was great.
Right, exactly.
Don't play to the crowd.
So, question from Julian: do you think Islam has passed Habib in terms of legacy, and does legacy only depend on the number of title defenses or being undefeated? In my answer to that, like, let's answer the second part first. Does legacy only depend on the number of title defenses or being undefeated? No. I don't think it does. Like, I think you look at somebody's entire body of work, right? Hey, if you go through this great, run of people and are undefeated, like John Jones essentially is, right? I think, that adds to your legacy, but you can lose a fight and still, this sport is especially more so than boxing because there's so many ways to win and so many ways to lose. And I try to tell like new people who, most of the people that are friends of mine that I run into, that, they tend to be, boxing fans and they haven't been MMA fans. And so when I'm trying to convince somebody to be an MMA fan as well as a boxing fan, I make this point. I said, if George and I are boxing and one of us is winning, it's hard to change the outcome of it. If he's that much better than I am, it's hard to make a real significant adjustment. But if you're in an MMA fight and, hey, you're getting outstruck, you can take him down. You can try different techniques, different things and change the course of the fight, right? And so that's why there's more ways to win and more ways to lose. So we don't penalize you if you lose, one or two. And being undefeated is a function sometimes of who you fought, right? The fact that Habib, was undefeated was a phenomenal thing. And John Jones is essentially, I know UFC keeps putting out, which I wish they wouldn't do that because that's, it's technically not true, but Jones went through this whole, run and he hasn't been beaten yet. He's had a couple close calls and whatnot. The Matt Hamill fight, he lost by disqualification, and you can't ignore that, even though I think most people agree that it was a mistake by the referee.
Yeah.
So,
bunch of.
Anyways, let's see. What do we got here? Let's put this one up. Who do you think is the most anticipated fight the UFC can make with the current roster? Makhachev versus Topuria, Jones versus Aspinall. Go ahead, George. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I would like to see. Just the most anticipated one I'd like to see. If Khamzat beats Robert Whittaker convincingly, what about him versus Pereira? Just
Khamzat versus
yeah.
No.
I think that would be a good fight because I think he could move up. I think he could move up. I think that's just me. That's me because I don't know. Aspinall versus Jones. I don't really want to see that fight for me because I just think Jones. I know. I get it. Everyone. Excuse me. Everyone's going to kill me in the comments.
Paging Coach Diz.
Yeah, Coach Diz would agree with you. I know, but that's not a fight for me. I want to see the new blood in. I want to see new blood. I love combat.
What is that?
Because Jones is old. He's old. He's old news, man. He can't even get one heavyweight fight. He fought Cyril Gane. But Dana would kill me if he heard this now. God, go ahead. No, but I think obviously Topuria and Holloway's good. But then again, I went to the same thing where I'm thinking Topuria's going to beat him because of the youth. I want to see new blood. We need new stuff.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what I think we say. Like, let's talk about your fight. If that's the fight you want to see, great. But Khamzat is a welterweight / middleweight, and he's a big welterweight and probably a small middleweight, right? So now you're going to put him up against Pereira, who is a light heavyweight / heavyweight. Well, Pereira was 230 some pounds in the ring,
But he hasn't ruled out going back down to take DDP. He hasn't ruled that out.
He did come back and say, I'm not going to do it in my next fight, right? And then and what did he say Saturday night at the post? I could have reached out and grabbed his hand. He was that close to me, right in front of me at the post-fight press conference. And he said, I want to fight at heavyweight, and UFC doesn't seem to be interested right now. So he's more interested in going up. And so to me, that's a size disadvantage, right? And I'm going to also argue with the premise of your statement because you said beating Robert Whittaker handily. Robert Whittaker is a freaking stud, and I don't think any.
No, you're right. And then how about this? Then how about let me retract everything for me getting smashed. How about Pereira and Aspinall? That would be one I'd be interested in.
Well, again, so here's why Jones Aspinall would be the fight that I would say, because I didn't answer it. But you have a heavyweight champion versus the interim heavyweight champion. But Tom Aspinall is not just there are a ton of people that have had, interim championships in the UFC, right? Since the UFC started handing out interim titles. There's a lot of people that have had an interim belt. But Tom Aspinall has a chance to be a generational fighter, I think. I mean, he has everything you want to see in a great fighter. He's fast. He is the fastest heavyweight there is in that division. He has good wrestling. He has tremendous jiu-jitsu. He has great striking. He's quick. He's got good size. John is 6'4" with that 85-inch reach, and Aspinall is 6'5", 260 with a similar reach. I mean, Aspinall has so many things that I think that's kind of like the biggest heavyweight fight the UFC could ever put on. And people love heavyweights. And so to me, that is the fight. Then you have a clear champion. At that point, then if you want to say, okay, we're going to send up Pereira to do that, then that is doing that. So
you got a super chat there. I know you take the priorities there, the priority questions with the super chats there.
Well, it was just in, but Devin said I talked us into following this guy, and then he throws out Alex versus Hamzat. So Devin, I taught him. You saw the look on my face when he said that.
Hey, listen, people, I get bashed on comments constantly. MMA is not my forte. I was a boxer, so boxing is my forte. But I like people that make challenges. How come in boxing everyone says you got to move up? It got De La Hoya knocked out by Hopkins, and it was so take the chance.
Let me say this too, George. Hamzat, when he first came into the UFC, there was no bigger Hamzat fan than I was, because his first 2 fights were in 10 days. He's wrestling people and talking to Dana White, going, "Now watch out, Dana. I'm going to slam him right over in front of you," and carry him over and slam him and pummel him and do all that stuff. And so I think that. At that time, maybe you would say, okay, he deserves something. But, now he hasn't been active. He hasn't been taking a lot of fights. And he needs to get, he barely beat Usman, and Usman took the fight on short notice and everything. So I am not so sure about that. So we'll move on from that. Devin, thank you for the super chat. We appreciate it.
Kevin, you can kill me all you want. Just keep super chatting, Kevin. Just kill me all you want. I got killed on this Portaway podcast one time. Oh God, it was bad.
So okay, a little bit of a joke here, but we'll give Jappy Joe a little, let him get a laugh out of that one. So that was good. So what do we got here? I had this thought: we're in a fight when it comes to a judge's decision. Wins should be given to the fighter who's dominating at the round-wise point system. Shouldn't be considered. Might be stupid. Maybe the one thing that they can do, right? Because I don't think that there's a better system. Everybody hates the 10-point must system, and you can change it to 5-point must, which they used to use way back in the day in boxing, or you can go to the 20-point must, which some people used to use. It doesn't change the fact that it's subjective. Where do you score, right? And they're always going to make it, if it's a 5-point must, it's going to be 5-4. If it's a 10-point must, it's going to be 10-9. And if it's a 20-point must, it's going to be 20-19. So that's not solving anything. So I think keep a 10-point must system in there. But at the end of the fight, if it's going to a decision, the judges scored each individual round, also turn in a card who we thought won. Right. And if it's a draw, now we can pick a winner. So, who won the fight? So, maybe you think, because here's what sometimes happens. Let's take this scenario. I am fighting George. In round 1, it's a very boring round. Not a lot happens. And I landed 3 punches and George landed 1. George is doing this and not throwing any punches. So I win that round 10-9. Round 2 comes in a similar round. I win that. So now I'm up 20-18. Round 3 comes in and George opens up. He hurts me. He's hitting me pretty good. It's not big enough to be a 10-8 round. George does some damage. He wins the round, clearly takes our round. Who would you rather be at the end of that fight? Would you rather be George, who had a very, very strong round, and then 2 nothing rounds, or would you rather be me, who won 2 rounds, but didn't really do anything. And that's where I think if the judge at the end then turns in a card and says, okay, I think George won that fight. I think Jones won that fight. I think Miocic won that fight. You put that in. And if the fight is a draw, at least that's a way of breaking the draw.
Oh, Kevin, was that not the Pride rules?
They did have that in Pride. Yes.
Okay. You got a big super chat there. Whoa.
So, AED, what do we got here? So, I appreciate that. The worst box, appreciate that. Do I think Pereira deserves pound for pound number 1? Khalil was ranked number 8, even if he's really good in this fight. Islam's resume is hard to beat. That's what I said. I think Pereira is closing in on him because he's fighting more regularly and he's fighting top guys. Now, this, obviously fighting number 8 Roundtree. I think Roundtree proved he deserves to be ranked higher. But yes, Roundtree was the lowest ranked guy to get a title fight in quite a while in the UFC. And so, I don't think he gets as much credit for that as if, let's say he had beaten Ankalaev, right? Ankalaev was ranked number 2. But let's look at the light heavyweight rankings for a second, because I think when you look at these carefully, it's really amazing, what Pereira has done. So he's fought number 1 Prohaska twice. He's 2-0 with 2 knockouts. He hasn't fought Ankalaev yet. He's fought number 3 Jamal Hill. He's 1-0 with the first round knockout. He's fought number 4 Blachowicz. He's 1-0 with a win. Hasn't fought Rakic. Hasn't fought Ozdemir. He fought Khalil Roundtree, 1-0 with a knockout. I mean, he is destroying these guys. Adesanya. He fought Strickland. Both champions. They're ranked number 1 and 2 in the middleweight division. So when he was a middleweight, so his resume, is really, really good, Worst Box, and we appreciate the super chat a tremendous amount. I still would vote. I'm not voting in the UFC's poll. I have my own poll, KevinIole.com. If you click on MMA or boxing, you can pull down and see my rankings. So I still have Islam up there number 1. But I think Alex is gaining on him, and it's going to be good that Islam's going to have to, that's going to, put a little spark in Islam's ass, right? And he's going to have to, try to step it up. So you love that kind of competition, even if it's not direct.
Yeah, you got a lot of people commenting here, Kev. You got exactly what you need there with the engagement here.
Let's show this. Put this one up. I got to disagree with you. I don't think beating a 43-year-old Stipe, who last got KO'd 4 years ago, makes you the pound-for-pound best if he beat Tom. Okay, Landon, and I understand what you're saying, and you have heard me arguing with Dana saying that, Stipe doesn't deserve a title fight, given what you just laid out. His last, fight was over 3 years ago, and his last win was over 4 years ago. So, yeah, I understand that. But what I said was we have to look at how John looks, right? And how he looks in the fight, because John's body of work is remarkable. And so when we look at what John has done his whole time and all the great fighters that he's beaten, and everybody has close. I know some people, Dana thought he lost to Reyes, right? Some people thought he lost to Gustafsson. I happen to think he beat Gustafsson, but some people thought he lost to Gustafsson. But however you want to look at that, Ali had close, fights in his career, Jones's resume is right there. And if he comes back and looks good against Stipe, I think, but I'm going to withhold judgment until I see the fight and see how he looks. Does that make sense?
You're talking to Landon, right?
I'm talking to you.
Oh, me? No, you know what? I was shocked.
I don't think Landon can answer us.
Well, no, I'm saying you're oh God, Kevin, you're all over me today. Jeez. I must have been at dinner out in Vegas. But anyway, I was shocked that they're still chasing this fight. Only because I think Landon's right. He's an old dude. That guy got knocked out viciously. When he gets knocked out, it's like Jerry Cooney. When Jerry, how he gets knocked out, it's like bad knocked out. And he was really knocked out bad. And then to come back and want to fight, I don't know. But I still, again, I am on Dana's side with him being the pound-for-pound greatest there's ever been. And I think currently right now, I would say he could walk in and just be the pound-for-pound greatest. But I just kind of trying to rile you up a little, Kev.
So let's move on. Henry Cejudo hinted he might want to move down to 125. Is that smart? His age. Henry, I will say this. Henry is a wrestler. He knows how to make weight. He knows his body vastly better than any of us do. If Henry thinks he can make the weight successfully, there's two issues with making the weight. It's making the weight and being able to recover and be a semblance of your normal self, right? So if he thinks he can do those two things, I think, yes, move back down there. And I think that is Henry's best weight class. So to me, yes, but only Henry knows that answer. I would probably say, and I kind of, Julian, I kind of lean toward your position, or at least that what I think you're, sort of saying in there, that you question whether, whether that's a good one, good decision for him to make. And I think at his age, that's you're probably better fighting at a higher weight. But I think, he's slowing down a little bit, lost to morale. He hasn't been the same guy he's been inactive, to a large degree. So, I think probably without knowing his body, I would say 135, but he knows his body better than we do.
Yeah, I think you're asking too much. That age, it don't come off like it used to. But the only thing he would have was the knowledge. If I had my knowledge that I had, look, I got 2 torn shoulders, completely torn, but I'm okay when I'm in there sparring, because I have I have the IQ that I can know what I want. But making weight, I'm out. I wouldn't be doing that.
So, all right, let's move on here. Can we see Covington and Gary finally headline the Tampa card? I am hoping that is the fight, Rakid, that they make and put on. So we'll see if they do that. They haven't announced they haven't announced for the pay-per-view in December yet, let alone for the fight night in Tampa. Pereira versus Tom is a reasonable matchup, or a winner of Rakic versus Ankalaev takes on Alic, which is more probable to happen. I think the winner of I think Dana said that the other day. The Rakic Ankalaev winner will fight Pereira next. The only way I would think that you might see something happen, and God forbid this happens, is if Stipe or John gets hurt. But I don't know that they're going to be able to bring Alex back in that quickly, right? But they might move it back, so who knows, right? But I think it's going to be the Rakic Ankalaev winner, and that will be the most deserving fighter at that point. Rakic, his resume not quite as good as Ankalaev's resume, but if you beat Ankalaev, that's a big statement, and I think then that go there. George, anything to add, or you want to move to the next question?
Nope. Keep it moving. Keep it rolling. You got a lot of people on here.
All right. What do we got? Should Pereira fight Ankalaev next, or push for a heavyweight title shot? So we just answered that one. Seeing someone push for a 3-division champ. So let me, Green Ghost, I wrote a column on KevinIole.com in April after, and I did a video, so you can look on my YouTube video. So let's go back into April. I did a video the day after the fight saying Alex deserved the opportunity to try to fight at heavyweight, right? And that was before we knew what was going to happen with John and Stipe and the whole 9 yards. But now that, we see two things have happened, Aspinall beats Curtis Blades by first round knockout. He's back. He's showing us that he is the elite of the elite. The UFC put together Miocic versus Jones. So it's hard to now throw Pereira into the heavyweight mix until those 3 guys kind of finish their business. Then we can talk about Alex as a heavyweight. And the problem is, if we talk about Alex as a heavyweight, right, George, he's 37. And if you wait, let's just say 2 fights, Jones, Miocic, and then assuming that Jones wins, Jones, Aspinall, that would take, Pereira into probably late next year. He's 38. Who knows what happens?
I think it'd probably be a safe bet to say he's coming at that point. Probably wouldn't be a good move to go to heavyweight. I mean, later in your career.
So,
I don't know. Not me.
So you see, they're not happy. They're picking Bivol, and he's not happy because he's on your side.
Yes. Oh no. Yeah. Good point. I'm taking credit for something. King Jappy Joe was siding with me, and I am horrible. I'm betting you another steak dinner next time. Well, next time in Vegas, we'll go to Sinatra. I'll get a hot dog. You get a lamb chop, whatever you got there.
Shara Bullet, one of the intriguing fighters that's come into the UFC in the last couple of years, he'll be fighting in Abu Dhabi, fighting Armin Petrosian. Does he deserve a fight, a ranked opponent? I mean, I think he's right there if it's one more fight or after Petrosian or the next fight. But I think he's right there. And I mean, he's showing, some of these kickboxers are coming in and wow, what they're doing, right? You think that kickboxers, are one dimensional and don't have that extra element to their game, but some of these guys, headlined by Pereira, Israel Adesanya, but there's other ones too. God bless him. So I think he's right there. I'm not sure it is a, it's a guarantee. There's no right or wrong answer on that one.
I always wondered why kickboxers wouldn't be like really more dominant. I know the wrestling aspect, but man, they can use their feet, their hands, good striking. I mean, and you just get a little wrestling.
Yeah, I mean it's hey, look, there was what was Mike Bisping's weakness at the beginning in his UFC career, right? He'd get taken down by guys, and not a lot because he was a good kickboxer, but he would get taken down, and then then they can neutralize a lot of what you do. As Bisping got better and he was better as a grappler, better at takedown defense, keeping fights standing, then he's able to upset somebody there that I think was interesting. Hank's question about the weight cutting. I can see Ilya having an easy night if he's able to kick Max's legs effectively. I think that fight, is going to be interesting. Like that's another fight. Like I mentioned, Beterbiev Bivol. That is another fight that I see. It could go either way. A lot of these UFC main events and co-main events, they're so evenly matched. They're really difficult to, to say with, there's some fights I say, there's no way this guy is losing or that woman is losing, and then they lose. But, I think in the situation, with this fight, it's really a toss-up. I'm leaning toward Max's experience and what he's been through and everything, but does Ilya go out there and do a Volk on him? Hey, it wouldn't shock me.
Let me ask you quick on Bivol Beterbiev quick. Have you ever seen such a 50-50 fight? When's the last time I saw a 50-50 even fight? Because I saw a bunch of polls and it was all 50-50. Have you? Yeah. When you see something like that?
That's what we need more of, right? That is what we need. We need that. Well, let me ask you this. Just we'll throw one more boxing part in there. If Canelo fights Benavidez, is that a 50-50 fight, especially at this stage of their careers?
Yeah, you know what? That's another one that's about 50-50. Yeah, the only thing that knocks against Canelo is his age, but then the experience. I mean, yeah, you're 50-50. You're right. That would be two real good 50-50 fights if they could be made. And that would really, why not put those together? Mm-hmm. Well, we got one coming, but I mean, the other one should be, I'm still saying that one's going to be in May, the Benavidez fight, but
we'll see how that goes. If Hamzat wins against Whitaker, can we see him against DDP in Australia at UFC 312 since there will be no visa issues? I think, no, I think you're going to see Sean Strickland fight DDP. That would be my guess.
Yes. You got a super chat there, Kev. I don't know if you saw that.
No, pop it up.
I'll pop it up for you. There you go.
Alrighty. Since you know Dana well, who do you think replaces him? I mean, if Dana left today, I think it's a slam dunk. Hunter Campbell would replace him, right? I mean, and I don't think there's any question about that. And guys, we'll keep going if there's more questions, good questions. We're not repeating. I see some that are starting to repeat. As long as we're not repeating, we'll keep going and answer your questions. But put that question back up again. Never mind. I got it. It was who's replacing Dana. I think if it's now, it's Hunter Campbell. Hunter does a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Dana is so in demand and in so many aspects of the business, right? And he has to do the media work that takes time away from the other stuff. So Hunter does a lot of the day-to-day stuff. He's the chief business officer, and 100%, he would be the guy. Now, I don't think Dana's going to walk away for a long time, but if we're talking 5 or 10 years from now down the road, I don't think you can really predict anybody because, I think it's going to be a business person. It's not, and a lot of people want to say like, hey, put Daniel Cormier in or somebody like that, a fighter that, they like, but you're running the UFC, depending on the stock market and everything at a given day, is a $12 billion business, right? So you have to get a business person to run that. Dana's kind of a fluke entity, and then he turns out, to be a great business person, but he's also a fight person, right? He was in the fight game and he has those, he's proven his business chops. And I think if he writes a business book someday, forget an inside book of his time in the UFC, just write a business book, right, George? That book would be a bestseller.
Now let me ask you this though, because yes, I think Hunter Campbell could come in and do the stuff that's behind the scenes and done, but charismatic wise, that was, and I don't know if it's anymore because I think UFC is just a brand itself. That was the kind of like the lightning rod that pushed UFC forward. When Dana would do his scrums, he'd bash people and he would say stuff that was off the wall. Who I don't think there's anyone who can replace that.
Cannot be, whoever replaces Dana, we know eventually somebody's going to replace Dana, right? You have to be yourself, and whoever that person is, that he or she has to be himself or herself, right? I think Hunter Campbell is a really smart guy, an astute business person. He's a charismatic guy, but there's no Dana White, right? There's no Dana White. And, and so you're not going to replace. So if you try to be Dana, you're going to guarantee fail. If you try to be yourself, you may still fail because it's a freaking hard job following, you look at it like who followed John Wooden at UCLA, who followed Bear Bryant at Alabama. And, a lot of those times it's difficult to come after that legend. Gerard Mayo right now following Bill Belichick, right? I mean, you see it's not easy to do that. Mm-hmm. But I do think, that if it happened anytime soon, Hunter Campbell would be the guy. He makes a lot of the matches. He's a really smart guy, does a lot of good things. So that is, I would go there. So
what about AI?
No, I think we're going to pass on that. All right, here's a good one. Who would you vote for Fighter of the Year? So go ahead. So, let's answer them both since it wasn't specified. George, go ahead. I'll let you take boxing first. I'll take MMA, and then we'll switch.
Jeez. Oh, I don't know who I would have Fighter of the Year. Probably Terrence Crawford, I would think at this point. I really don't know. Has there really been a staple big fight that stood out from you? I mean, could Daniel Dubois? I mean, that would be one, but he only won one big fight. I don't know. I mean, Crawford would be
I think everybody's forgetting a guy that's not a bad little fighter, Alexander Usyk, who defeated Tyson Fury.
You're right. And you're right.
Here's what I would say right here. My Fighter of the Year, I don't think there's a clear cut. I agree with you. So in boxing, I'm betting, since we've been talking mostly MMA, making the walks talking MMA. So we'll get into that in a second. But my leader for Fighter of the Year right now would be Naoya Inoue, because of what he has done and who he has beaten and how he has beaten them. But he hasn't had his best challengers this year, right? And so I think if Usyk beats Fury in December, then Usyk is Usyk, right? He is the guy. If Fury wins that fight, though, then I think you got to go back to Inoue and look at him and say, he is the Fighter of the Year. MMA male Fighter of the Year, I don't think there's any question. Alex Pereira. Now we're talking female Fighter of the Year, and it's a little harder. I'm going to throw a PFL fighter out there. I'm not going to vote for her because I don't think she fought the competition, but I think Dakota Ditcheva, at least female Fighter of the Year, deserves consideration, and she's very good. Gotten herself into the PFL final. She's gotten herself into the pound-for-pound rankings. I think she deserves to be considered there, for that. But I think when we're looking at who is going to be the, female MMA Fighter of the Year, I think it's the same as in boxing. There's no clear-cut person right now. Do you take Valentina Shevchenko? Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. So I think we have to see what goes on in these last 3 months, October, November, December, before, we have a leader. But Alex Pereira would be my vote in men's MMA. And then in boxing, I would go with Noya Inoue, with the caveat that if Usyk wins his rematch against Fury, he's the guy.
And that's an indictment on boxing that I couldn't even put that together. I put Crawford only because he moved up to the weight class, fought a guy who was a world champion. I mean, former world champ. That's the only thing I can think of. That's just an indictment on boxing itself. Pereira, obviously the runaway MMA fighter of the year for male.
Right. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, we already answered that question. Let's see. I'm just trying to get going on down here. We answered that question. Man, these questions, I didn't realize how far behind we were. I'm just
Wait, look, that guy said Usyk.
He's ripping me for Usyk?
No, he chose Usyk. He was probably shouting at his TV going, Usyk. And I said Usyk. I know. It was just, you know what? To be honest with you, the shows are so late at night sometimes that I fall asleep.
Well, and George, I'll say this, when picking, like, when you're doing these kind of live chats, right? We don't know what questions are going to come up. Nobody tells us in advance. So you're answering questions all over and so you haven't thought about it for a while, right? So we're sitting here talking about MMA, and then all of a sudden, okay, who's the boxing fighter of the year? It takes a second, but like, I think, I gave my picks on that.
Bam Rodriguez? How about Bam Rodriguez?
Bam Rodriguez would be another one in that mix. I think Iole would be ahead of him, but certainly that's
Robert Garcia, trainer of the year. He's had a bunch of good fighters this year. He's done very well.
How do I think Ankalaev matches up with Pereira? I think that's a fascinating matchup. Ankalaev has wrestling, and he has 6 knockouts in the UFC. He is a striker. He has some striking. I think that is the toughest matchup for Pereira in the division, right? I think that is going to be the toughest. If you watch my interview that I did with Alex before UFC 307, Varun, I had asked him about fighting Ankalaev at the end, and he talked a lot about his grappling there, and he says, I have way better grappling than people think, and he was talking about it. So it's right toward the end. The interview, I think, is like 12 or 13 minutes long, and that was either the last or next to last question I asked him. You can fast forward to there and you'll see that. And he talked about it. But I think Ankalaev, George, is probably the toughest match in the division for Alex right now.
That would be the toughest matchup right now. The only question is that someone had brought this up to me and I wasn't sure about it. I thought maybe you'd know. Ankalaev's chin, a little shaky, or has he been tested?
No, I don't think he has any questions. I mean, he's been rocked. I think Johnny Walker rocked him once, but I think his chin is okay. But you can have a good chin against Alex Pereira, and it doesn't matter, right? I'm going to ask, and I should mention for people who weren't on at the beginning, look for my interview today. I'm interviewing Khalil Roundtree at noon today. I'm going to put that up very quickly after the interview is over, so you guys can see that, because Khalil deserves his moment in the sun. I want people to see that. Let's see. All right, what is this? Kevin is the only one that asked Dana what we want to hear. I'm just asking him, there's this notion out there all of a sudden that I've changed who I am and how I do my work. I've done this all my life, right? This is the way I've always done things. And let me say this. I'm all of a sudden, ever since Dana and I had that John Jones pound for pound thing a couple of weeks ago, people were, say this to Dana, and I will say whatever is necessary to Dana or whoever I'm interviewing, right? Whether, it doesn't matter. That's what my job is, to ask the relevant, pertinent questions. And so I'm going to do that. But that topic was notable because, it had been going around for such a long period of time that, I had my thoughts out on that. But my job is not to sit here and try to go Dana into fights and have entertaining or anybody else, right? On the thing. If there's something that he deserves to be called out on, call him out on it, right? and I'm going to give one example. Some people said to me in the comments, and I understand why they said it. And so I want to have 100% transparency. I asked Dana on my last Q&A with Dana, George, and I know you saw that. I said to him, we were talking about crossover fights, MMA fighters going over and fighting boxing. And he said he hated crossover fights, which I have written a million times. I hate crossover fights myself. But then I said, but doesn't it work for some people? Because Francis Ngannou is the exact point. I said, he made more in the 2 fights in boxing than he would have made had he stayed and fought, accepted your offer and fought in the UFC. And Dana got mad and he said, that's not true. And he went on a little bit of a rant. And then some people said, I didn't push back enough. And so let me explain that so you understand. If I have facts, like if I had a commission pay sheet and I could pull this pay sheet up and say, okay, this is the pay sheet and this is what Ngannou was made. Believe me, I would have been saying, you're full of it, blah, 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 blah. But there was no, Ngannou's purse was never officially reported. There's people that have said it, was 5 million, it was 10 million, it was 20 million in these different fights. We don't know. I have a feeling that, that he was making, he probably made $30 million over those 2 fights against Fury and Anthony Joshua combined. Which would mean if that was the case, he made more. But I didn't have facts, so I couldn't push back a lot because I didn't have the facts to back me up. And so he went off. So when we do this, like I will ask any question that I feel is appropriate, and that you guys are interested in, and we will try to answer those in the best possible. I'll try to ask them in the best possible way. But we're not out here trying to start fights and have, so I hope, does that make sense, George?
No, it makes sense, but you've always been that way, and that's the other thing. You're not you even with me. You call me out if you think I'm wrong, and but that's good journalism. And sometimes people take it the wrong way. They take it the wrong way. It's not. We're not. There's no gotcha moments. But there's one thing I will say. I find it very hard to believe that he would have made more money staying in the UFC. That's not a knock on Dan. It's hard to believe because all the outside stuff he could have gotten to, endorsements and what have, because then he's a free guy to do Under Armour and he does Gymshark. There's just so much more because he did say that he had an opportunity to do a Bitcoin thing and they nixed it. When he was with
crypto.com, yeah,
what it was, and they nixed it. And he was on a very popular podcast saying that. So I tend to think that there's Dana's got his own ways to say he's going to go with what he says, but I can't buy that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just we didn't have the facts, so we couldn't push back.
Could you find the facts? Would he tell you? You think?
What's that?
Do you think Ngannou would be open to saying, "Hey, this is what I made"?
We'll ask him. We'll see what he says. All right, let's put some more questions up here. Is it time for Wonder Boy to call it a day and retire? What do you think?
Yeah, he's got a lot of good stuff going on outside. I'm not one to ever tell anyone to retire. No, you don't think?
I mean, he fought. So let's pull up the rankings here, right? So he beat Kevin Hall in a fight before. Okay. And Kevin Holland's a good fighter, even though he lost this last fight. Kevin Holland's a good fighter, and that was a good fight. He lost to Joaquin Buckley. He was going to win the fight, right? I think he was winning the fight. Yeah. He got caught. Hey, give Buckley all the credit in the world. He did what he had to do, and he landed the shot. And I'm not saying it was a fluke punch, but Wonder Boy was doing well in that fight, and he wasn't getting hit a lot. He got caught with one shot. If he had been getting beaten up that's where I look at it. Like when you see guys that used to be difficult to hit all of a sudden start getting hit and start, getting hurt in fights, then you say, okay, his reflexes aren't there. I don't think that's the case with Wonder Boy, right? So I think if he wants to go on now, if he comes out and he gets blasted next time out and goes out, I think that's a different story. But as of right now, George, I don't think it calls for him to retire.
Oh, well, I'm not saying calls for him. I never want to call it, but I think he's got a lot of stuff outside that he could do. Why not get a breakaway? I think he could make maybe not the significant money. I mean, I probably made a couple $1 million in the last year or two, but I'm sure he's got a lot of stuff outside. Why get punched in the face? I that's the only thing they stay in it too long. their face gets busted up, their brain cells are all rattled around. That's the only reason. I'm very big on fighters doing stuff outside of the ring to make your money, which is why they should get endorsements.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's go through some of these quickly. Ones like this. Do you think Usman has a chance to become champion again at welterweight? I would say probably like 4 out of 10 chance.
40%. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Okay, I don't favor it, but he's a great fighter. If he comes back, I wouldn't shock me. Okay, now this is a good question. What happens if Stipe beats Jones? Nobody talks about that. I think the answer is pretty obvious then. Rematch, right? You're going to have to beat Jones twice to walk away with the heavyweight title, right? That's the way it's going to be. So if John wins, I think both guys retire. If Stipe wins, now Stipe may retire. That'll be the interesting thing. If Stipe retires, win or lose, then. But I think if Stipe beats Jones, let's assume that No or Never's premise is correct. Stipe beats Jones. Then Jones, of course, will want a rematch. I think Stipe would give him a rematch, and under those circumstances, and that would happen. So I think that is what would happen there.
Well, all right, that would upset the apple cart. Oof.
Are you getting ripped in there?
Oh no, I said it would upset the apple cart. Oh, I get ripped on every comment. It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm a dumb bagel guy, guys. I'm a dumb bagel guy. I happen to be a boxer back in the day. So, geez. Go ahead.
George is my friend. What chance would you give Francis Ngannou against Renan Ferreira after his loss to AJ earlier this year? I mean, Renan is a big freaking dude, and he's but like you look at what Renan has done, and he's had these no contests and everything. I don't think Renan's record is as impressive. He won the tournament in 23, but I don't think his records. Let me call up his record a quick second here. George, talk a second while I pull up his record.
Oh, well, I believe that Francis Ngannou, you got to see what he's going to come back at. Sometimes knockouts like that, and that was a bad knockout. Sometimes those do something to you psychologically, and you can't come back, even though you might be more talented than your next opponent. But that's something that you don't come back like that for him. A knockout like that, because that was a bad one. An embarrassing.
So let's go back. So now let's go back to 2022. Okay. So at that point, Ferreira is 4-1 with 2 no contests, right? So he loses to Kitson Abreu. Abreu fails his post-fight drug test, so it's changed to a no contest. Then he comes out August 13th of 22. He gets knocked out by Ante Delija, Crocop's guy. He gets knocked out in the first round of a fight in Wales. Then he comes back, and Kuniev on April 7th of 2023 defeats Ferreira. And then Kuniev gets busted for drugs. He's out, so Ferreira then goes back in. Ferreira comes back. He beats Mateusz Scheffel. It's a non-entity. That's not a significant win. Maurice Green, he knocks him out. Former UFC fighter, the Crochet Boss, a small heavyweight, kind of on the back end of it too. Maurice is getting up there. I don't think that win carries that much weight. Knocks out Dennis Goltsov. Okay, that was a good win. Goltsov, one of the better, fighters. And then he beats Ryan Bader, and I'm not.
That was a big size.
I mean, Bader can still fight at light heavyweight. He doesn't want to cut the weight, so he fights at heavyweight. So yeah. So I mean, I don't think. But having said that, I think Francis should be favored. But Francis hasn't fought MMA since January of 2022. So they're fighting on October 19th. So what are we looking at there? 2 years and 10 months. So, we're looking at 34 months since he's fought MMA. And like you said, George, he's coming off a brutal knockout. And I think that is always, always difficult to do. So,
that's the most difficult thing to come back from, I think. Right. I'm getting killed by Hank the Tank here in the comments. He's killing me.
Come on, Hank, leave my man alone.
Oh, shit. Jesus. No, he's kidding. I think he's funny.
What is the best scenario for Conor, considering he had 2 fights left in his contract? Boy, I'll tell you, that is a really, really tough. Like, how do you match Conor? and the reason I think it's tough is how you match Connor is what weight do we put him in? How much we don't know what how much he's training. I think, you hear Dana not saying anything. Like, did you see George Connor's live stream he did for Dual Bits a couple of weeks ago?
It wasn't good. It wasn't good.
Okay. And I asked Dana about that at last week's Contender Series. Connor was drunk. It looked like he might have been doing some other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Did not look like a guy that was ready to fight. I think if they had their druthers, they would have him fight in March of 2025 in Las Vegas. All Dana would say would be 2025, right? Who do we put him in against? So if you move him into welterweight, like, you look at let's look at the rankings. Okay, let's go 11 through 15. Wonder Boy's 11. No. Michael Morales is a young fighter on the rise. I don't think there's any way they put him in with Michael Morales. Michael Venom Page, that might be a possibility, right? So let's mark him down. Vicente Luque might be, similar way, although I think Vicente is kind of on the backside too. Do they want to put Connor in with somebody? And then Neil Magny, to me, that's a no. Do you go higher? Then do you go, if we go 6 through 10, Colby Covington, I don't think they want to put Connor in with somebody that's going to wrestle him like that. Ian Machado Gary, I don't think they want to waste Ian Machado Gary because he and Connor are close, right? Gilbert Burns is just coming off a bad loss. Buckley, all you guys ripped Buckley for calling Connor out last time, so I don't think we'll see that. And then Jeff Neal, so I think then if you go over into lightweight, who knows? Fiziev, is Fiziev a guy that we could see?
No.
Fiziev is ranked number 10 at lightweight. He's a good striker. It will be a fun fight. I don't know.
He's really not that well known. I mean, you got to throw him in there. Look, if you're going to use Connor, because he's dabbling way too much in his BKFC. I mean, he's way too into that. I think why wouldn't Dana say, "Hey, go fight there, split the revenue or somehow"? I know. Because he's on the tail end of his career. I'm looking at it as a business. He's still going to sell. But it'd be scary to put him in with anybody in the top 10. He might get knocked out.
So when are we getting the Makhachev Umar interview? I don't have either one on the schedule this week. I saw Ali Abdelaziz, the manager of both guys, at the airport. He was on my flight flying back to Las Vegas on Saturday. I saw him at the airport, and he did say both interviews are going to happen. Let me just remind everybody again, I'll have Khalil Roundtree today. I'm also talking to Tatsuro Taira later today. And then tomorrow I'm going to talk to Brandon Royval in the morning. Trying really hard to get Dmitry Bivol interview. That's proven to be a little trickier than I hoped it would be, but I'm working on getting Dmitry Bivol. So that's what I know I have planned right now, but stuff happens, and so things will come up. So we'll have to let you know when things get scheduled. Let's see here. Okay, we answered the Connor questions.
Making the walk has a pretty good. What about Connor versus Masvidal?
Well,
you don't think that would do? I think it would do big numbers. They're both going to strike. They're not going to really wrestle.
I mean, Connor versus Nate Diaz might be the fight, right?
Oh, oh God, I don't. Why does everyone love that fight? I think I think Nate Diaz is just about on tail end here. He's got to go.
Well, he won the fight against
yeah. How many years ago?
July.
Oh, against who? Oh, Masvidal. Okay, no, I thought you were talking about Connor. That's Connor.
Right.
So, yeah, he won. That was years ago. Masvidal, yeah, but did he really win? Masvidal, I thought won that fight.
All right, let's see which we go. Down here, let's see. What do we got? Ankalaev likes to strike too much versus Yanni kept it standing until he's about to get finished. I don't disagree with that. Let's see. Thank you, Kev. Thoughts on Aldo Batista? We covered this at the beginning, so I won't get into it a lot. But I think, I went back and watched the fight again, Kevin, and I think that Batista wasn't trying to finish the fight. He was holding a leg, just trying to keep it stalled against the cage. And so judging, I think the judging was mistaken there, and so I didn't like that the way that went. So we'll move on. So let's see. All right.
Stress Pitbull has a good one there.
They should do Oliveira versus Connor. Oliveira's fighting Chandler in New York as the co-main event. So that one, we're not going to see. And by the way, guys, I just want to mention I banned this guy Bo, who was making vile comments. You can rip me and say whatever you want. I don't care, but just we don't know who's in here. There could be children in here. Why do that? Don't be an asshole, right? So we're not. You can say I stink. You can say George stinks. You can say whatever you want.
Believe me, they're not shy about saying George stinks. I can tell you
that. I don't care about that, but don't put those vile comments up there. That's we don't need to see that. All right, so let's see. I guess we'll make this the last.
Kev, that last one. That's stressful.
Unless anybody pops anything else in while we're talking on this one, I don't even know what to say about that.
It's pretty funny. He actually, the way he pronounces them, it actually is pretty funny. It's so different. Like, it's really weird. He gets real into the vowels and stuff. Very funny. I don't know if he's doing it on purpose or I don't know. Trying to be funny, but it's pretty funny, I think.
Yeah. So. And finally, we'll just say who's Aldo's manager. He shouldn't be fighting up and comers. He's a legend. I agree with that. And you can Andre Pedernera's his coach and manager. You can and then George Guimaraes. You can understand that situation, but you look at he comes out of a retirement. Who do you put him against? Right? It's difficult, and I think the UFC offers you a fight. They're pre-programmed to say yes, we will take that fight. What do you think, George? Should we wrap her up? We did an hour and a half.
Just one thing. I saw the Oliveira Chandler. Who do you favor in that one?
Oh, Charles Oliveira.
Oh, okay. All right. Just figured. I don't know. That's me. Well, whatever you want to do, Kev. It's up to you. Got a couple more coming in.
I think Aldo versus. Okay, well we'll put this one up. Aldo versus Dominic Cruz next.
Legends kind of go at it. Go ahead, have at it.
I mean, I wonder, about that fight, Dominic. But yeah, no, I mean that's not bad. But Dominic's not ranked, and I think Aldo wants to get one more crack at the title, right? So I think that now it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. So who said Batista 110-8? Nobody said that.
No.
So anyways, Aldo versus Sandhagen. I keep Sandhagen's name in mind for Sugar Sean potentially.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I did hear that.
Sugar Sean had surgery. I watched a little bit of his podcast on Sunday. So that was 3 or 4 days after his after his surgery. And he said he was feeling really good. He was going to hope to put the gloves on pretty soon. And he thought, he originally had said, I think he said 8 to 12 months. And now he's saying, maybe 3 to 6 months. He thinks he might be back faster. So a Sandhagen fight for him, may not be a bad,
that injury, was that the labrum or was that the meniscus?
He had the hip. He had the
that's right. It's in the hip.
The thing in the hips, So, anyways, well, I think we've done enough. We're kind of talking the same topics over and over. Let us know in the comments. Do you want me to continue to do these with George at this time, 11:30? We started today Eastern, 8:30 Pacific. Do you want to try a different day? Do you want to try a different hour? Let me know and we'll try to make it work. We want to do them on a regular basis. If you're not subscribed to our channels, please do that. I would greatly appreciate that. My YouTube channel, Kevin Iole, George's Zapata Brand podcast. Also go to keviniole.com. I really would appreciate appreciate you registering. If you want to comment on my site, all the stories are free to read on keviniole.com. But we ask you to register only because we want to limit spam in the comments. But if you register, I would appreciate that, and make some comments. We want to get the engagement. We have really good engagement on our YouTube channel. We want to get that going there. So anyways, appreciate everybody. George, good job. Thank you.
Thank you. If you need my picks, I can give you my picks. Let me know, and it's worth exactly what you pay for it. $0.
And I am going to be tonight interviewing Khalil Roundtree and Tatsuro Taira coming up, and then I will be at Dana White Contender Series tonight. So a lot of stuff going on. We will talk to you guys later. Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.